With the release of Alien Romulus this week, it's time to talk about one of my favorite sci-fi horror films, and that is the original Alien, directed by Ridley Scott from 1979. I have been wanting to talk about this film for quite a while now. I've been wanting to figure out exactly when I wanted to mention it in the future, and this is just such a perfect time with Alien Romulus coming out. I've been a huge fan of the Alien films since Alien vs. Predator when I was a young lad. Those films are not good. But it was enough for me to rent a VHS copy of Alien from my local video store, and I was enthralled by this movie. I probably shouldn't have watched that. I don't know why the video store clerk gave that to me. I was like 11. As I said before, Alien was directed by Ridley Scott, and he has mentioned that he, at first, had never any desires to direct a sci-fi film, but then he saw 2001: A Space Odyssey directed by the great Stanley Kubrick, and he was like, yeah, I want to do that. Yeah, hold my beer. And I just love hearing stuff like that. I love hearing stories of how directors were fans of other directors, like big movies, and they accumulate that into their own work. It's just crazy to think that if he didn't see that movie, we wouldn't have this great, almost perfect movie. This movie is one of my favorite sci-fi horror films, and I've had conversations with friends in the past where we try to figure out, is Alien more of a sci-fi film? Is it more of a horror film? Very similar to when we talk about Predator. Is it a sci-fi film? Is it an action film? When it comes to Alien, this is 100% a horror film. It's that familiar story of a group of people coming home from something, whether it be from work or a vacation, and then they take a detour to explore something that they're totally unaware of. And when they get to that detour, it becomes an actual living nightmare. Alien is centered around a crew on a commercial vessel called the Nostromo, and they're awakened from hypersleep. They're only halfway home because they receive a beacon. Due to company protocol, they have to go check out this beacon on this planet-like structure, and when they get there, they come across an alien ship that has never been identified or seen before. And while exploring the wreckage of the ship, one of the crew members comes across these eggs, and then that's when we're introduced to the infamous facehugger, who attaches itself on his face, and once he gets back to the ship, something unfortunately bursts out of his chest, and the crew have to figure out how to stop this alien being on their ship. I think the main thing that makes Alien work so well is the set design. There is such a good atmosphere when this crew is on the ship, and then they land on this alien world that they know nothing of. The reason why it works is because they had two different set designers. One was Ron Cobb, who worked on the actual human ship, and the other one was H.R. Giger, who worked on the alien homeworld and the alien planet, and the alien itself. The way that Ron Cobb approached the ship is he made it very industrialized, where no matter what your perception of the future is, it's such an industrial part of it, it's such an industrial corner of it, that it's so believable to the point where this movie and its atmosphere and the setting is incredibly timeless. Everything is just so well lived in when the crew is just walking on this ship, and there's all of a sudden steam because something's broken and they have to fix it. And the ship also plays into the scares. They made it to where there are blind corners, so whenever a crew member is walking down the halls, they never know if this creature is on the other side waiting for them, so it's just such a scary atmosphere, and the ship is just such a perfect setting for a horror film. As I mentioned before, there were two set designers. Ron Cobb was originally tasked with making the alien ship in the alien homeworld, but unfortunately, his designs were very human-esque and industrial, just like the actual human ship. Ridley Scott was looking for something a little bit more artificial and biological, and he was introduced one day to this book called Necronomicon, which is a book that showcases a lot of illustrations from H.R. Giger, who depicts nightmare-like visuals and just things that are just so disturbing that it is from nightmares. When Ridley Scott saw this artwork, he was like, I need you to work on my movie. And so he did, and it actually won the film an Oscar. The alien design is just so undescribable. It is something from a nightmare. It is something that I can only say is the outcome of violation. It is just such a horrific creature, and it's also very haunting to know that this is this perfect organism. It is so perfect that it doesn't even require eyes. That's how good it is at surviving and hunting prey. This is a fucking monster. And not only is the alien great in this film, its victims are also really great. Everyone involved in this cast is really emulating what a crew would be like on a ship or a spaceship, whatever. You have your captain, you have your lead scientist, you have your warrant officer, Ripley, Sigourney Weaver, fantastic. And you have your engineers who say that they do a lot of work fixing up the ship, and they don't think that they're getting a fair share. The crew is just so well lived in with the conversations that they have and the discussion that they're having when they get this beacon and they're going down to this unknown planet seems very real. Like, do they do this? Do they not do it? Oh, wait, we have to do it because it's in protocol. Let's go ahead and do this so we can go home. But unfortunately, one of the crew members is exposed to the facehugger, and this thing alone, like, the alien hasn't even come up on the screen yet. This is just the facehugger. It's still horrifying. The fact that, like, you have this thing attached to your face and you're trying every medical possibility to get it off. You're trying to cut it, but it's got fucking acid that comes out of it. And then all of a sudden, after a day or so, it finally comes off and you think all is well. Everybody's having dinner and celebrating that their crew member is fine. And then all of a sudden, he just starts getting chest pains. And then you have the biggest reaction ever amongst crew in a movie. The alien chest burst scene, the crew didn't know about it. They knew partially what was going to happen. They knew that something was going to be coming out of this crew member. They just didn't know the full-on details. And then when they see this actually occurring, the fear and horror in their eyes is genuine because they had no idea the details of what they were going to be seeing that day. It's also horrific because it's so unexpected. You think throughout the movie that Kane is going to be the main character because we see Kane rise and wake up, and we're under the assumption that this is the movie establishing that this is our main character. But unfortunately, that's not what the motive of that scene was. It was to showcase that this was going to be the host of the alien, and it's just terrifying. It's so scary because now at this point, no one is safe on this ship. And by the way, the alien coming out of his chest, my sick mind thinks it's hilarious. I think it's just like when it runs, it's like when he pops up, he's a baby, and he's just looking around, and he's like, "Fuck you, bitches." I'm demented. Within the context of the movie, it's horrifying, but like just the visualization of that thing running across the table, it's hilarious. And after this thing bursts out of Kane's chest, the situation just gets progressively worse. Like, if it was bad before, it just gets far worse after this point. Not only has this thing escaped onto the ship and they have to find it, and they only have like this air density equipment to figure out where it's at, but then they start to realize that the thing has fucking grown. They find like snake skin or whatever, and Brett is killed, and the cat just like looking at Brett's death is just such a, what a great shot. And then they're like, okay, well, it's obviously using the vents. We've got to go in the vents. So Dallas, the captain of the ship, takes the initiative to go up these vents with a flamethrower. And even with this air density equipment, the creature is still able to, like, get him. And the ambiguity of them just finding a flamethrower up there is just so horrific. We're going to talk about that as well, because there is a theatrical cut of the movie, and there's also a 2003 director's cut. I want to mention that later on, but right now, I'm just talking about the theatrical release because I actually did see this movie on the re-release of like at AMC. So I'm just talking about it from that perspective, but I do want to touch on the director's cut. And as I said before, the situation just gets worse and worse where Ripley is now the captain of the ship, and she finds out through Mother, the computer on the ship, that this is all pre-planned, that this was all intentional, them going to this surface world, because the company that they're working for wants this alien. And to add insult to injury, Ash is a fucking robot. That is actually the most out of left field thing in this fucking movie. Like when that happens, like when he gets his head bashed, it's just like this, what the why is there milk coming out of his neck? I do like it when Parker says, it's a robot. Ash is a goddamn robot, because it adds like this like level of to this universe that like, okay, the characters are aware of this. Robots are out there. It's the future. And it kind of just creates like this like element of the universe that we're not sure of, and it could be explored in the near future, which it is, but it's just a nice touch. And the part where they're interrogating Ash's head, Jesus Christ, the part when they're interrogating Ash's head, and he's saying like, I'm not gonna lie to you, your chances are slim, but you have my sympathies, is so just fucking nightmare fuel. It's crazy. And the fact that it establishes that this is essentially a perfect organism is, yeah, they gotta get off the ship. The ship on self-destruct mode is such a nerve-wracking scene. All the crew is actually dead at this point, and then Ripley is the only one left. but she can't get to the escape pods because the alien is blocking it. So she's like, oh shit, I've got to go and turn off the self-destruct. And she's able to do it, but not on time. And she just has like this amazing reaction to the ship's AI. Like, robots and AI, like if that's like a problem right now, like this movie predicted it. This is why we should not have AI operating like integral things like spaceships exploding. Like, absolutely not. And I like the ending of the movie. Ripley has escaped. She's on the escape pod with Jonesy the cat. By the way, this movie is another further point that if the cat survives in a horror film, you've made a really good horror film. My girlfriend and I have had this conversation, and we've read so many articles where, like, if the cat survives in a horror film, that means it's good. Like, we saw Thanksgiving last year. We saw A Quiet Place Day 1. We saw Night Swim. Oh, wait a minute. Never exclude Night Swim. It proves my point. And all seems well, and Ripley finds this thing on the ship, and I'd be done at that point. But I do like how it's played that she uses her wits to outsmart the alien. Even though it's like this perfect organism, she's able to blow it out the hatch, and it just is floating in space. I think it's like it's a perfect ending, just like floating out in space. Bye bye. And like I said, the movie relies heavily on ambiguity. You don't know if Ripley survives this at the time, obviously. Like, you know, Aliens came out, but at the time when people saw this in 1979, they had no idea if Ripley was going to make it back home, considering that they were only halfway there. And she sends out a distress signal if they find her pod, like, you know, come for her. So there is a little bit of ambiguity in horror where you don't know if this character is still gonna make it out. She's been successful at defeating this creature, but her survival is still in question. And let's talk about ambiguity for a second. Like I said, I wanted to talk about the two versions of the film. One is the 1979 cut, and the other one is the 2003 director's cut. Ridley Scott loves his director's cuts. He is definitely someone who loves to improve his films over time. Blade Runner is a perfect example of that. Here's the thing. I'm under the impression as to whichever version that you watch, it's still a near perfect film. It's not like Zack Snyder where you have to watch this version to gain like the best experience ever. It's because Ridley Scott made an excellent film in the first place. And even though there was stuff cut out, it still works. Here's the stuff that I noticed from the director's cut. So when they are trying to get back on the ship after Kane has this face hugger on him, they're trying to figure out how to get this thing off of him. And Ripley's upset because Ash let Dallas and them on the ship, and she's scared about contamination because she's someone who follows protocol and tries to play it safe in scenarios like this. And when Ripley's coming down the ladder to scold everybody, Lambert smacks the shit out of her, which is totally understandable. Like, if you're in her position and someone's not letting you on this ship and you just want to get out of there, like, you'd be really upset too. So I kind of like that scene, actually. Then there's a scene where Brett is trying to find Jonesy the cat, because if they don't find the cat, the reader is not going to work and they're not going to be able to properly find the alien. And he's in the room with like the chains, and there's actually a shot of the alien just hanging there, waiting for the perfect time to come down and take Brett. I like that shot. That shot's actually really cool. I mean, it's just, we kind of see the alien anyways, like, after that. So he's coming soon. So just showing him up there is just, I don't know, it's just a little extra thing. If it was in the film or not in the film, it wouldn't really make any difference because we see him soon. The main thing that the director's cut showcases is Ripley comes across the bodies of Dallas and Brett. Apparently the alien was taking it to like its like nests or whatever, and it's all gunky and stuff like that. I don't really like this part. I like the ambiguity of how Dallas just disappears, and it's just such a horrific thing because after the ship blows up, you never know like where he went or what happened to him. And then like Ripley just finds him in this like nest, and he's like, kill me, kill me. I don't know, it just felt really stereotypical and something you'd see out of a generic horror film. It's just like, I don't know. I like how we never see him again. I think it's more scary in the film. But overall, guys, I love Alien. I think it's a near perfect film. I think it has a really good cast. I think it has great set design. I think it has a perfect monster. It has inspired so many just like it since its release. As you can see, I'm a huge fan of Dead Space, the Isaac Clarke helmet in the background. I hope to talk about Dead Space in the near future, but just a little note I want to add. Without Alien, we probably wouldn't have Dead Space. They are very similar stories where you're trapped on a ship and you're trying to get out of there. It's claustrophobic. I think Alien for that video game. That is one of my favorite horror video games ever. But yeah, guys, let me know what you think of Alien down in the comments below. Let me know if you're looking forward to Alien Romulus, and please subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet. Thank you guys so much. I am Corbett Stuckey, and thank you for watching.